So, I might like playing Rhythm Heaven. I know you wouldn't be able to guess from the channel. The gameplay on each individual minigame is usually pretty stellar, and the remixes do a fantastic job of combining them all to create really memorable Nintendo experiences. Not every remix is that strong, though. I'd argue that remixes like Remix 1 and 4GBA, and especially Donut Remix, suffer a lot from a lack of inspired music or gameplay. However, these aren't the worst offenders at all. Rhythm Heaven DS is my favorite Rhythm Heaven game, and generally I'd say that the remixes aren't its strongest points. I'd say it's about a 50-50 split between good and bad, where I love 9, 8, 6, and to an extent 3, but some of them are pretty meh, like Remix 5. However, I don't think any of them are really bad at all. Well, no. Remix 2 sucks. Now let me clarify. The game selection in Remix 2 isn't bad at all. As a custom remixer who's been making remixes for... oh god, almost 2 years. Jesus Christ, time flies. I'm not the biggest fan of Shoot 'em Up as a standalone game, but I think it works really well as a basic call and response game in remixes. I love the two Moai Doo-Wop games, but that's a discussion for another day, but thankfully they also work pretty well in remixes. Rhythm Rally can be a pretty fine filler game in remixes if you need to fill up some space, and Bluebirds can actually match with the song really well if you know what you're doing. So what the hell went wrong with Remix 2 DS? I mean, clearly the game selection isn't the problem. I mean, I praised all of these games' usage potential in remixes, aside from Rhythm Rally, which is just fine. Well, let's just take a look at the remix from 3 different angles I like to evaluate every Rhythm Heaven game or remix by. The gameplay, the music, and the presentation. So we start out with a pretty simple Bluebird section where there are 2 peck your beak cues and a stretch out your neck cue. The stretch out your neck cue is well timed with the music, but the peck your beaks are just filler cues, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. I hate to say it, but this is also where the remix peaks. Aside from the ending, I guess, but that's just a carbon copy of this part. I don't think this is a huge deal though. A lot of DS remixes are pretty repetitive in structure, and honestly, starting out the same way you end is actually a pretty good way to make something stick out in your mind. Okay, so that was the best part of the remix, and it was a completely average Bluebird section. Well, guess it's all downhill from here. Also, it's kind of a shame that Bluebirds only shows up twice in this remix, especially considering that the gameplay is just mirrored with not even the slightest modifications. I would have loved to see more Bluebirds, and it kinda sucks that in its only other non-medley remix, Remix 8 DS, it only gets used twice in a fun gimmick part. That being said, I don't mind this as much in Remix 8, just because it's a post-game remix. They're supposed to be more experimental and fun, so whatever. I just wish Remix 2 DS used more of it. Well, that's enough talking about a game that gets a cumulative 19 seconds of screen time in this remix. So the next 8 measures of the song are dedicated to what is essentially a duet of gameplay between Moai Doo-Wop and Shoot 'em Up. And on paper, that sounds cool. Showing parallels between how the two games handle patterns while showing what makes them different is pretty interesting in concept. The issue, however, stems from the fact that after the first Rhythm Rally part, which we'll get to, it repeats this exact same segment, but with one singular added cue. Thanks, Rhythm Heaven DS. This is only made worse by the fact that I'm pretty sure this is the shortest remix in Rhythm Heaven DS. I don't have much to add on to these parts. It's just really painful to play through when you know you could be playing a more engaging remix like Remix 8 DS. So after the first 8 measures of this painful, repetitive slog of call and response games, you get a perfectly average Rhythm Rally part. It's just the main cue, but honestly it breaks up the gameplay fine, so whatever, I don't have anything to add to this. That being said, in the second Rhythm Rally part, there's a section of the music that would sync up perfectly to a fast rally, and would be a pretty nice part of the gameplay that adds a lot to the remix, which, let's be honest, kind of needs it. In an ideal world, the gameplay would look something like this. It syncs up nicely, right? So why didn't they do that? In fact, how didn't they do that? Rhythm Rally always starts on the first beat, and never deviates. So it would be pretty hard to miss this very obvious fast rally spot. Well, just take a look for yourself. They delay the start of the pattern by 2 beats. The only reason I can think of why they might delay this by 2 beats is to put the animation where they toss the ball. But you don't need the animation where they toss the ball. It's an 120 BPM remix, and you're using the slowest cue in Rhythm Rally to start it out with. I think the player can react. It's fine. This is my least favorite moment in any Rhythm Heaven game. It doesn't even... I know this sounds like a small issue, but in a remix where everything has been average to, for the majority of it, pretty boring, they really needed something that would elevate the gameplay at least a little. Give us a little bit of sync that isn't just, oh, do this call and response pattern 8 times. And they could have done something with this Rhythm Rally part. It was very obvious, and they just missed it. It frustrates me. Okay, well, the charting and gameplay generally sucked. So how's the music? It's fine enough. It's not super great, but it's nothing bad at all, and conveys this tropical theme pretty well. I think the most memorable part of it for me is the fact that the Noise's Radical Anthem from Pizza Tower uses the same sample in it, but that's external, so who cares. I just wish it was less repetitive, but a lot of DS songs are, and that contributes to a lot of the remix's repetitive structure. So, whatever. Nothing much else to add here, let's just move on to the visuals. So let's just go in order of appearance here. So for starters, I think Bluebirds is pretty easily the strongest visually here. I love how the Bluebirds and the Captain look here. They really do feel like they're on vacation, and I think the background's actually pretty nice. I love how the Captain Bluebird's leaf moves down as he talks. And yeah, it's overall pretty nice and charming. The same cannot be said for Shoot 'em Up. Why did they use this saturated deep blue background? Theoretically, it's kind of interesting to have it be nighttime in one of these, but it just does not look good here. They should have gone with something a little darker, instead of just max saturation, and the orange isn't really helping. The orange isn't bad per se, but it does not go well with the background at all. And I mean, I guess otherwise it's charming enough, but it just does not please the eyes, I'd argue. Moai Doo-Wop is kind of an unfortunate case, because I think the visuals are pretty good here, but they kind of got stolen by Remix 9DS, which is an infinitely more memorable remix, with Moai Doo-Wop as one of its most memorable parts. Oops. So there goes part of this remix's identity, I guess. I can't really blame this remix for that, but when I see that Moai texture, I definitely think to Remix 9DS, not this one. Onto Rhythm Rally, they didn't really hit their stride with Rhythm Rally textures until Barbershop Remix and Megamix, which I will defend with my life, but that's for another video. For now, it's passable for the DS. I don't mind the whole island aesthetic, and I like the orange paddlers, but it's nothing special. It's pretty polygonal, but that's to be expected, so it's fine. So, that was Remix 2DS. The worst game in the series, and Remix by extension. I used to believe that Built to Scale Wii was the worst game in the series, but upon further inspection, that has more good qualities, good quote-unquote, than this, where this is just average at best, painfully boring and slow at worst, which is part of why I don't like Built to Scale Wii, but again, topic for another day. I want to do more videos like this. I already have the next 3 planned out. I don't know if I'll actually act upon that. But it's just nice to ramble about Rhythm Heaven sometimes. If you've been in a voice call with me in a server like Heaven Studio at all, you know that I have way too many thoughts on these games, and I'd love to hear some suggestions on games for me to cover. I have a lot of goddamn ideas. This video format is pretty heavily inspired by GD Colon, so go check him out. I'm sure you already know him, but he does fantastic videos, and honestly, they kind of pushed me to make this. It's pretty unscripted. I'm just rambling about key points I had in my head that I needed to talk about. Hope you guys have a good day, and please use Meat Grinder and Heaven Studio.